We all want our research to be of high quality. We want to know that our readers will find us credible and will recognize the contribution that we are offering to the discussion. But how do we know that our research is of high quality? It's important to note that the quality indicators used in more positivist and/or more quantitative research will look somewhat different to the kinds of quality indicators that we use in qualitative research design. The key issue will be whether there's a strong rationale for the study. Have you clearly described to your reader why the study needed to be done? Have you built an argument for the study, some kind of gap in the literature, some kind of specific focus within the context, some reason why your study was not only worth doing, but is now worth the reader's time in engaging with your text? Having described the rationale or the purpose or the reason for the study, have you now got a clear research question that emerges from that rationale, that is easy to understand and that seems appropriate? And then, is there a golden thread holding each and every paragraph together? Right from the context of your study through to which kinds of literature you engage with and what concepts you deem to be important, through to the theoretical lenses that you have chosen to use to analyze your data, through to the kinds of data you collect and your choices about how to collect them, and of course the means by which you analyze that data to move from the raw data to being able to present findings and discussion. We want to see a connection, an alignment, a coherence between all of these aspects. So when you select and apply your research designs or methods, we need to see that you have done so in a way that will actually allow you to investigate your research question. So the research question, which emerges from your rationale, then becomes the guiding star by which every other decision needs to be aligned, or the golden thread. Perhaps you could think of it as the research question being the needle that pulls the golden thread of all other aspects of your research. So the trustworthiness, the quality, if you like, of your research study is predicated on a few elements. Firstly, the suitability of your research design or methodology given the specific questions that you've posed. Secondly, the rigor by which you apply that methodology. And we can only tell whether you've applied it rigorously if you describe in detail your decisions around choosing the methodology and implementing it. The link between the question and your methodology must be very clear to your reader. It must be justified. And we need to have sufficient detail of your methods, your measures, your data collection, your analysis, the subjects or participants involved. The reader can only judge the quality of your implementation if you describe it clearly to them. So a lot of quality in qualitative research is about that coherence, that internal logic. Validity typically means, is it the truth? Is it valid? Has the researcher proven their hypothesis? Given that in qualitative research there are often multiple truths with different participants having their own personal experiences of the phenomenon and different theories sometimes allowing us to come to quite different explanations of that phenomenon, it's far more contested, the nature of truth, when you're working in qualitative research. And so the idea of validity is perhaps a bit tempered. In the natural sciences, you often also have this quality indicator of reliability, which means that the findings will be reliable no matter who replicates this particular experiment or study. It can be replicated over and over again, and you will always get the same results. Again, in qualitative research, this is not hugely helpful, because if someone else went and interviewed your participants, they may find that they get slightly different understandings. You may even get different findings if you interview someone in the morning or if you interviewed them in the afternoon. So the nature of knowledge that we are producing through our research is not cut and dried and which we can replicate time and time again. And the third natural science quality indicator, if I can crudely put it like that, there are of course not a simple division between natural science and social sciences, but for the sake of ease, let me put it as crudely as that. In the natural sciences, a key quality indicator will be generalizability, and they'll often give limits. So you might be able to generalize the study, you might be able to increase the quantities in an experiment and still get the same finding. And they'll specify under what conditions you can generalize the findings from one particular study. But we again are far more cautious. Just because something was found among school children, for example, in one particular class, doesn't mean you'll find that in another class. So we're careful about the generalizability of our findings. So those last two bullets are quality indicators that are more commonly used in qualitative research design: authenticity and trustworthiness. And here the questions are: is the data authentic? Did the participant, for example, feel that they were being respected? Did they feel comfortable enough to be able to provide their truth, their version of events, their understandings of a particular experience? Or were there problematic power relations that may have made the participant feel that they needed to say what they thought the interviewer wanted? And then trustworthiness. Do we feel that the researcher has been honest with us and explained their research design decisions and described in detail the process by which they moved from their data to the findings that they are presenting? And in order to increase the trustworthiness, you need to be explicit in your writing about those research design decisions and in your description of the research design process. 3 things you might like to consider to increase quality. The first one is triangulation. Again, this is a slightly problematic word because it is used to have fairly different meanings in more hypothesis-based research compared to research question, open-ended qualitative research. In a more hypothesis-based, perhaps you want to say natural sciences, perhaps you want to say positivist research, but in that broad, rough family of research where we are working with verifiable truths, triangulation is a means by which you would use 3 or more different forms of data or 3 or more different methods of analysis to check that you come to the same answer each time. So we use triangulation as a means of checking. I found it from I did the experiment in one way and I got result number X. Let me do it in another way. Yes, I'm still getting result number X. And let me do it in a third way. Yes, I'm still getting result number X. So I've increased the quality because I know that in all 3 ways the result is X. But of course, in qualitative research design, if I interview 3 different people, or if I use 3 different methods of data collection, for example, maybe I do surveys, maybe I do focus groups, maybe I do interviews, those 3 methods are not going to increase the validity of my findings because I may well get quite different information from the survey to the focus group to the interview because it's different people, different views, even just different times of the day. So in qualitative research, we often use triangulation more as a way of saying, have we got the full picture? Have we tried to look at this from multiple angles to understand as fully as we can the complexities of the phenomenon? It's not to find out which is the truth and which is false, but rather to understand more fully the complexity of the phenomenon. We also sometimes use member checking. Member checking can take various forms, but it's a way of checking with our participants whether we are on the same page. So perhaps you've interviewed someone, you might send them the transcript to ask, is this a fair transcript, a fair writing up of our discussion? And they often will read that, and that'll sometimes be an opportunity for them to actually add things and to say, yes, it is fair, and I also thought about X, Y, and Z. So member checking is just a way of respecting our participants and checking that how we have understood something is how they have understood it. Some people use member checking not only of the raw data, but of the final document. So they will send to their participants their final findings and say, do you think this is a fair interpretation? That is often a very powerful way of really increasing quality but in some cases it's perhaps less appropriate because your participants are not well versed in the particular theoretical framing. They obviously can only see the phenomenon from their own perspective, which is what they shared with you. Through your theoretical framing, you might be able to demonstrate other perspectives that your participants may not either fully understand or indeed fully agree with. And you now need to ask yourself, just because they don't agree with how I've interpreted it, does that mean my interpretation is flawed or not? And then thirdly, very importantly, to increase quality is you need to look at all aspects of power through the power of the theoretical lenses that you're using, which may allow you to see certain things but may blinker or blind you to other things. The power of the relationship between the researcher and the participants, where you as a researcher may have more or less power than your participants, and how might that influence the kinds of data you are able to access. And the power in terms of how you produce the text that will be read by your readers and the stylistic choices that you make around that. And so engaging with deliberations around power is an important way of increasing quality. I look forward to reading some very high quality research outputs from all of you.